today I'm going to be putting up the cabbage that Matt and I grew this year. I'm going to make several jars of Granny's Kraut, but I'm also going to make a recipe that I tried for the first time last year and that we all really liked. We ate it, I only made one run of it, but we ate it all pretty much before the winter was over. I mean, didn't even make it into the, hardly into the spring, so we really enjoyed it. And I can't remember, but maybe one of you sent me this link, maybe. And if you did, thank you, because I think it's something that I'll make from now on. So I've printed it out, and I will put that link in the description below, so if you wanted to print it out. But it comes from Nelson Road Garden, that website, Nelson Road Garden, canned coleslaw. So I'm gonna just read you all the stuff, then I'll show you as I go along how I do it. But it says, there's no better way to preserve cabbage than to make canned coleslaw. It stays crunchy and is shelf stable for years. I think over in here they say for 2 years, but I would bet that it would be shelf stable for longer than that. So, ingredients, and I should say that first so you see everything that's laid out here. I'm going to double the recipe because I knew we liked it. I've got plenty of cabbage, so I'm going to make 2 runs of it all at the same time. But so that's why I've got more than it looks like I need. So 1 medium cabbage, 1 large carrot, 1 small yellow onion, 1 red bell pepper, 2 tablespoons of Canon or kosher salt, 1 1/2 cups of apple cider vinegar, 3 cups sugar, 1/3 cup water, 1 1/2 teaspoon of celery seed, and 1 1/2 teaspoon of mustard seed. Now I'm going to go ahead and read you the directions, but again I'll show you as I go along. But their advice is first to prep your jars, lids, and rings. Wash them well and set them aside. I've not done that. Mine are downstairs in the basement. I'm going to have to go after them. Chop the cabbage, bell pepper, carrot, and onion, and then add in the salt. Mix well and cover and let sit for 2 hours. So during that 2 hours, I'm going to have to eat me some dinner. I'm hungry, but I'm also going to be making some of Granny's Kraut, and then I'll go down when I get the jars for that. I'll get more jars, so that's when I'm going to get mine. After you do that and let it set for 2 hours though, it says prep your water bath so it's ready to go after the cabbage mixture has rested for those 2 hours. Rinse several times. Let it rest while you prepare the brine. In a sauce pot, combine the apple cider vinegar, sugar, water, celery seed, and mustard seed. Bring to a boil and let it boil for 1 minute. Stir consistently. Remove from the heat. Pack the jars with the cabbage mixture tightly into the jars. Make sure to leave 1-inch head space. Pour the brine into the cabbage-filled jars and fill to the 1-inch head space. Wipe the rims of the jars with a clean rag and then put your lids on them and then the rings. Let's see. Tighten the rings carefully. Make sure to not over-tighten them or the lids will buckle. Carefully place the packed jars in the water bath. Process for 15 minutes. Remove the jars from the boiling water and set on a towel. Do not touch them until they've cooled completely because of course they're hot. For jars where the lids did not seal, that sometimes happens if you're canning, just store those in the refrigerator and eat them first. The jars that did seal can be stored on the shelf. Don't forget to write the date on the lid. To serve, strain the coleslaw and then add mayonnaise or serve as is. And then it says shelf stable for 2 years, store in a cool dark room, remove the rings before storing. Of course you'd have to remove them before serving, remove them before storing, and that's all personal. If you want to leave your rings on, leave them on. If you don't want to, take them off. That's up to you. And up to you where you store them too. So we did it both ways. When I made it the first time I opened a jar and tried it, it was just so good straight out of the jar that we just, whatever we were having for supper, I can't remember, we just ate it like that. We just ate it out of the jar, kind of like a, it was almost sort of like a pickle, but sort of not, but in that made you think of that, so it made a really good just side. The next time I drained it and mixed it with mayonnaise like that, and I thought, well, I don't know, we liked it so good the other way, should I even do this? But once I mixed it with the mayonnaise, we all liked it like that too. And I was just, I was thinking before I mixed it and drained it and mixed it, I thought, well, it's just going to taste like pickles mixed up with mayonnaise. But it really didn't. It had a different, it took on, I guess it took on more of the mayonnaise taste, so it really was good, really good. And it's like I said, good enough that I want to do it again this year because we all liked it. Everybody, Austin, Corey, everyone really, really liked it. So the first thing I need to do is to chop up my cabbage, my carrots, my peppers, and my onions, and so that I can get it all mixed up with the salt and then let it sit for those 2 hours. The cabbage come out of mine and Matt's garden, so I've got those. The onions I bought at the store, so I could have bigger onions, and then the red peppers I bought at the store too. And the carrots, I do have carrots in the yard, but these I had some in the refrigerator, so these come from the store. So just standing here, I can smell the apple cider vinegar. Lets me know that I'm in for a day of work in the kitchen, but it's nice to think about the work that I do today. I'll be reaping those benefits come, a cold winter day this December, January, February of next year. Now when it comes to chopping up all your vegetables here that you need to chop up, it really depends on how you like the texture of them. So like in the years that me and Matt, for example, have made kraut, sometimes we chop it with a knife so that it's big and coarse. Sometimes we use a food processor so that it's, smaller little pieces. Granny always chops hers really, really fine. And of course, with a food processor, you can kind of pulse and leave it in bigger pieces if that's what you want to do. So that's your personal preference really determines that. And you can again go to the link on the website there where I found the recipe, and it looks like they have like a more of a coarser cut. But last year when I made it, I think I'll have to go back and see if I can jog my memory. I don't think I did a video. I know I didn't do a video, so I don't know. I probably can't go back to anything. But I probably think and used a food processor just because I was probably in a hurry and I wasn't even sure if we were going to like it. So you could, get your knives out, especially if you do one run of it. It's not that many vegetables, so it wouldn't take you no time if you wanted to use a knife and do it that way. But I'm going to use the food processor. So that was all the cabbage. Now I'm ready to go on to actually there's a little bit of cabbage. I'm just going to throw it in there. It's hiding under my knife. Ready to go on to the onions. And I'm just going to do them in there too. Just kind of gently pulse and not get them too small. Do the same with the carrots. Now, if you didn't have red peppers, I could have just used the peppers from my yard. It's just that the red gives it a really pretty color, but you could use you can use green peppers or yellow would be pretty too. But the red just really looks good with the cabbage. And the thing about doing peppers in the food processor is that they will quickly turn into liquid quickly, so you have to be careful doing them or you'll just end up with liquid, which would be great, for flavor or if you're just making pepper jelly or something. But if you want pieces, you got to kind of keep an eye on it. If you're wondering about my vintage food processor, Miss Cindy got me this one ages ago. She had one just like it, and she'd had it, years and years and years, and thought it really worked well. And I think she had tried some newer ones, and she just thought none of them worked as well as this one. So she loved to visit thrift stores, so she kept an eye out until she found me one too. And it does work good. It's kind of simple to use, but a real powerhouse. So I divided the things I chopped up between my two big bowls here. Miss Cindy also got me these bowls. They're like ceramic. I really love them. She got them like at a thrift store or yard sale or something. They're old, you can tell. So I'm just going to divide the salt between the two. It smells so good though with the cabbage and the peppers and the onions. Of course, I had to try some of the cabbage that we grew. It's really tasty, really good. Has a good flavor. It's funny, in my area, people talk about, really, especially older ladies like Granny, will talk about cabbage that's really good, that's grown in Nantahala. Nantahala's not too far from us, about 25, 30 minutes, something like that. It's the Nantahala Gorge. You could, if you've never been there, you can look it up. It's a beautiful area. But it's a little bit higher in elevation than we are here, so a lot of times if it snows, it's, you know, it snows there. It might not snow at my house. And then also the weather is just cooler. There's the Nantahala River going through there, I guess keeps things cool, but mostly just because it's a little bit higher up. So I've always heard that that's why they grow really good cabbage, is cooler temperatures. And I'm pretty proud of this cabbage. It looks really good. I need to call Granny and ask her if she wants a cabbage or two. See, get my knife, one piece of pepper that's pretty big there. Cut it while I'm looking. There's a big piece of cabbage. So now that I've got it all stirred up here, I'm going to let this sit for 2 hours. During that time, I'm going to eat me some watermelon for my dinner and clean up my mess. And I got to go get all my jars and things and get them ready. And then I'll show you the next step once 2 hours has passed. Well, during my 2 hours that I was waiting, while I was waiting for that mixture to mix with all the salt, I went to the post office to deliver cookbooks, drop off cookbooks. I ate some watermelon for my dinner, and then I started chopping up all the cabbage I've got to do to make kraut, all the ones I want to make kraut with. I did call Granny and see if she wanted any of them, and she said, I'll take a couple to eat. And I said, okay. And she said, did you say you was going to make kraut? And I said, yeah, I'm making kraut. And she said, could you make me a few jars? So I will just make Granny some kraut and share with her. Now, I have a couple of videos about kraut. I have one, the first one I shared was the way me and Matt had always made kraut. It's basically just cabbage and salt, doing it in a crock, or we use like a 2-gallon glass jar in that video. I think we do have crocks. And that's the way that Matt and I had always made it. Well, Granny doesn't make it like that, and she never has my whole life. That's not how she made it. The way she makes it, she learned from one of her aunts many years ago, and she said her aunt told her, this is one of the videos that I shared so I can link to it, told her that if you make it like this, you'll never make it any other way again. And Granny said, and she was right. I haven't all these years, so it's the way Granny makes it. So it's making kraut in the jar, in the 1 cannon jar. Now, you can do this with just the cabbage and the salt and do it in a cannon jar, let it ferment, and just enjoy it that way. That works really good too. I've done that before, especially when I would teach cooking classes. That was one of the ways that we made, because you can't make a whole crock of kraut in a cooking class, because how are they going to wait for it to make and take home? So it's kind of like I guess more of an educational thing to show how to make it in a jar, a small amount. But the way that Granny makes hers, I will read to you the directions here. Sterilize your jars. I've already done that. Chop up the cabbage. That's what I've been working on. Then we're going to add 2 teaspoons of salt to the jar there. Got me some pickling salt. And then we're going to add the cabbage. Now, last year when I put my cabbage in my jars, I didn't put it tight enough. Granny says you need to really pack it in there, and I didn't do that. So I'm going to try to do better on that this year. So you may be thinking like, well, why are you not doing it the way you and Matt always have? Well, because truthfully, we really loved Granny's last year. I loved 2 things about it. Of course, I'd eat Granny's over the years, and she'd give it to me. But when I made it myself, I realized how much easier it is. And then I just thought it tasted really good. So this year I'm going to do my kraut like that again. Just do it in the jars, and there it is, simple. And I'll answer probably my most asked question since that video here in a minute. Okay, now on top I'm going to put 1 teaspoon of sugar. The sugar's got a little damp there. And then I'm going to take just room temperature water, can come straight out of your tap, and I'm going to fill up the jar. And it doesn't actually, because you've packed it so tight, it doesn't, go all the way down. Sometimes you can wait a minute and a little bit of it will drip down through there, but it doesn't really need to just be floating in water either. I think that's about all it's going to be. Now I need to wipe off the top here. I've got my sterilized lid and ring, and Granny says put it on as tight as you can do it. I just go pretty tight, but I'm not like screwing it. That's what I did last year. Now once you do that, then you need to sit it on a, Granny puts hers on her porch because as it works off, as we would say, there may be a little bit of liquid leak out the top, so you don't want it to make a mess. You know, you need to put it somewhere where you can maybe sit it on a tray or something like that, or do like Granny and put it on her porch. Now, the most common question I got on that video is, well, how do you process it? How do you seal it? Does this seal it? Does this, you know, is it safe? All those kind of questions. Well, you have to answer that for yourself, whether or not you think it's safe. Some of the old ways of canning that we've always done, I do them because Granny did it, because her aunt did it, because her, you know, her mother or whoever taught her, and I feel okay with that. But you have to make that decision for yourself. I learned, I think it was last year I did a video, I had never heard of this, but there's a whole, they call it rebel canning if you don't follow FDA exactly, you know, that's what, I never heard of that. I said I was a rebel and didn't know it. I do use a pressure canner and I do use water bath, but like for this recipe, that's it, that's all I do. And I will leave it on the porch and, you know, 14, 21 days, something like that. I'll open one jar of it and taste it, and if I think it tastes good, then I'll take it and put it on my shelves in the basement and just eat it as I need it. That a lot of people that think you shouldn't do that. So what I would say though, if you're the least bit worried about it or afraid, two things. I would let it make, and then I would water bath can it. I'd water bath it for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, something like that. Now when you do that, you're going to kill all the probiotics that's in it, but still you'd be safe. If you're worried about those probiotics, this is such a simple recipe. I would make like 2 jars and I would let them work off, then I'd put them in my refrigerator and just eat them till they were gone. Then I'd make 2 more jars, you know, as you need it. Just do that. It's a really simple way to look at it. So now that I've got started at least on my kraut, I'm going to switch back over to the canned coleslaw that I was sharing with you so that you can see how to finish it up. So now that I've got my mixture drained, I did that, rinsed it off, said to rinse it good, I did that. Now I'm ready to make the brine. So I'm going to add all my ingredients to this stock pot. Here's my apple cider vinegar, water, sugar, and my celery and mustard seed. And we're just going to let that cook until it comes to a boil. While the mixture's coming to a boil, I'm going to go ahead and start filling my jars. It smells so good. I wish you could smell it. Also, it's really pretty. I'll let it boil for a minute and then just turn it off. I think I'm about at the 1 inch. I'll trade that one for this. Okay, ready to start filling them. I'm going to use my little debubbler to make sure that the juice went all the way down. I think it has. I'm making a mess. You'll be much neater than me if you try this. I'm going to wipe the tops. Put on the lids and taps. And then I'm going to finish my jars, and then all I'll need to do then is to water bath it. Isn't it beautiful though? Isn't it really pretty? Just really pretty in there. And it stays pretty too, even on the shelf, you know. Turns a little bit, but not much. It's so tasty though. Really, really tasty. Well, I ended up with 4 quarts, so it's a good thing that I doubled the recipe. I was thinking about that last year. I was thinking that that's what happened last year, is that I doubled it, and then I was really glad I did. So if you wanted more than 4, you'd need to even triple it or quadruple it. I need to write that on now that I've printed it out, I need to write that down on there and remind myself. And actually, 2 of them I packed pretty tight, and then like or maybe 3 of them, and then the last one was not packed that tight at all. So if you packed them all tightly, you might end up with just 3 if you double it. So you might want to keep that in mind if you decide to make it. And again, the recipe came from Nelson Road Garden. Nelson Road Garden. I will put that website link though down below so you can go see everything they say. And I went back and looked. I don't really see where they say how many it makes. So, but they do say to pack it tightly. So that must be how you do it. It's really good though. If you try it, I hope you'll let me know whether or not you liked it, you enjoyed it as much as we do. Let me set it back over here. I didn't have my hot water bath coming. I didn't have it ready, so I've got it coming to heat now and getting ready to boil, and then I'll put those in it. And then that'll be my last step. I need to, I can't remember how many did it say, to 15 minutes, so not bad, 15 minutes. I got to cook supper too. I got to get the move on. It's going to take me a long time to do the kraut, so I'll be doing that later tonight too. I did think of one thing though about the kraut that I didn't tell you a minute ago. So if you are worried about like the water, if you pack it really tightly like Granny, like I didn't do last year, and this year when I'm packing it tightly, then I'm like, well, how does the water seep down in there? Well, I called Granny and asked her. Of course, that's what I should have done to begin with when I was wondering about it. So like this one, I put the salt and packed it in there, put the sugar, and I filled it with water, and now the water's gone. So that was Granny's tip. She said leave the lids off of them for while you're doing it, while you're doing your other ones, and then go back through and top them off with water before you actually screw the lid on and leave them. So she did not tell me that on purpose last year or whenever she first told me how to make them and I wrote down the recipe. But so many times I do that same thing when I'm sharing something with you in a video, then I fail to say something, and then somebody, like 5 people, ask the question, and I'm like, why didn't I think of that? It's because I've done it so many times that I don't think of those things. So anyway, that's another tip from Granny. If you want to try it, is to leave the lid off, you know, while you're working on the others, and then put a little bit more. I did not do that last year, and mine was fine. So if you didn't do it last year, don't be thinking, oh no, because I didn't do that. I just filled them up. So anyway, another tip from Granny. I hope that you enjoyed coming along with me today. I've got a fly in here flying around me with me, and if you try this recipe, please let me know. We really, really loved it. We loved it straight out of the jar and mixed with mayonnaise like it suggests. I'm always glad when you stop by to help me celebrate Appalachia. Seems especially rewarding to me today to know that I'm working with all this cabbage that Matt and I planted and grew in our garden. It's always, I love every part of the garden, but harvesting and then putting it up and knowing that I'm gonna, this jar, I may just get out and eat out of the jar with soup beans this winter. I might make weenies and kraut with it. I might pour it over a pork roast and cook that for my family. So wonderful to think about that as I'm putting it up. And I hope every time I open a jar, I'll remember the day that I didn't actually get to cover it. That was Matt and Corey, but the day Matt and I harvested it, and even the day I shared with you here on YouTube. I'm always glad when you stop by to help me celebrate Appalachia.